Welcome to the Turn 2 podcast. I'm Scott Kornberg with my good friend Troy Johnston. Absolutely awesome episode for you guys today. I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest, Rob Zastryzny, who actually pitched here in Jacksonville in 2021. A couple years ago, he joked with me while he was pitching for Nashville that when he came into a game at our ballpark, that there was no tribute video for him. And I will say after this episode, hopefully he doesn't pitch here anymore. Hopefully he'll keep being in the major leagues. But if he does, we might have to have a tribute video ready for him because he was absolutely phenomenal. What a career for Rob. He came up in 2016 with the Chicago Cubs. If you know anything about that team, that's a pretty memorable championship team. We will dig into about what it was like to be on one of the most iconic championship teams ever. And then it's really interesting his career because he has bounced between AAA and the major leagues, and now in his early 30s found a way to stick with one of the best teams of this era, the Milwaukee Brewers, who seemingly win about 90, 95 games every single year. So just really amazing perspective from him on this game, and excited to start that conversation right now. All right. Our guest today is Rob Zastryzny, who is a 2021 Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. So welcome back to the Jumbo Shrimp realm. Rob, thank you for your time. Before we talk about any baseball, one of the things I remember most about when you were here is that you played in like 15 different fantasy football leagues. So I wanted to ask, it's playoff time now. How did your fantasy football seasons go in 2025?
I did what I always do, and it's something I need to learn from, is I made the playoffs in every league. I build my teams to be good. I get the depth that I need. I make the very smart moves to make my team a little bit better. And I got bounced in the first or second round in all but
Uh,
one. So it's one of those where like my ceiling isn't as high as it should be, but my floor is very, very high in fantasy football. And so I need to switch it up to where maybe I either get last place or first place. Like make those moves that are either going to kill my team or make my team the best. Because like, why do you play fantasy football if not to win? And the worst part is all these leagues I'm in are dynasty leagues. So depending on the order you finish, that's your draft pick. Rather you get first, you have the last pick. You get last, you have the first pick. And so I'm sitting here with like the ninth to 10th pick in every draft. So it's
mm.
like, why did I not go all the way in? So that's the adjustment I'm making. But yeah, I'm in 5 year-round leagues that I'm in every single year, and I'll never leave until they either disband or I die. And then I'm in like 3 or 4 that are like redraft year to year, and I just decide at the time if I want to join those.
The you're like the Pittsburgh Steelers, it sounds like. You can win the division, get the 4 seed, and then you're done.
Yeah,
Now you got
yeah.
to make the move from Mike Tomlin.
I
Oh,
am the
you
Mike Tomlin of fantasy football, and I've fired myself, and I'm going to hire somebody else.
do you think that's a real thing? Do you think somebody has like a fantasy football manager? Like they hire somebody and they're like, "Hey, I got like 6 teams. I need you to manage these, and I'll pay you, I don't know, half the winnings."
Yeah, that was my business idea that I talked to him about was
Oh, you're
I wanted
kidding.
to yeah, I wanted to either run football teams or do like content for fantasy football. And I figured it out in 2016 when I joined our show league with the Cubs. And I was a young guy. The buy-in was like 2,500, way too much for how much money I had at the time. But I was like, I'll win this league for sure. And David Ross won the league. And I remember talking to him about some of the moves he made, and he had no recollection of these moves that he made. And I was like, what is going on? He's like, oh, I have a guy that like helps me run my team. And that's where I got the idea from, where it's like, if you have 8 leagues and you don't have time, like you just hire me out and then I get a portion of whatever I win back. But then it kind of turns into me running leagues for guys. And like, I don't have enough time for that now for myself. So it wasn't a good idea, but yeah, it is definitely a real thing.
I wonder if AI could help with that. Like you could create a program through
Yeah.
AI that you put in the fantasy, you somehow connect the fantasy league. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this on a recorded, just in case
Yeah.
somebody's listening and has the means to do this
Delete
because they're
all of
taking
this.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder if you can do something through AI because I mean I'm late to the party, but I just started using Chat GPT and I love it. So I'm wondering if you can take your business idea and do it something like that.
1,000,000%. Because my wife's starting a business. She's kind of doing social media stuff. She's like branding out,
Nice.
like starting her own company. And she sat down at a coffee shop one day and ran it through ChatGPT, and she has like full conversations about her goals and what she wants to do. And this thing built out her entire business plan from like year 1 to year 10 in an hour. Like ChatGPT is
It's
like,
crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy. See, I use it for like fake pictures. Like I use it for
yeah,
I use it
Pictures
for
of what?
I use it for funny pictures and it just comes up.
yeah. I
Pictures
put
of what,
pictures of
Troy?
my son in like on like the balcony standing up and doing crazy things and
Yeah.
send it to my wife just to freak her out. Yeah.
Uh, Rob has had an amazing career as a left-handed pitcher as well in Major League Baseball. And Rob, when you were here, I think it was a really interesting time in your career. It's the COVID year, right? Like Um, there weren't people allowed in the clubhouse until like August, so I called your games. I didn't get to really meet you until then, which was very odd. But it was kind of an odd time in your career because you come up in 2016 with the Cubs, you win a World Series, maybe the most memorable World Series of all time, and you have a little bit of time with the Cubs, and then you're trying to get back to the major leagues, and it's almost like right after 2021 with Jacksonville you kind of get that time back in the majors with several different teams, probably most prominently where you are right now, the Brewers. So I guess when you think back to that, it's hard to believe it's 5 years ago now. Like that's kind of a weird breaking point in your career. You're in your late 20s, you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I have to do to have the career you've now had? What was it that came to mind that you did that has allowed you to be a bona fide major league reliever literally right now going to 2026 with the Brewers?
Well, there's a couple things that I can point to. Number one being I had an elbow fracture in 2020. So like I fractured my olecranon, which is essentially the back of my elbow. And I got a screw put in and kind of healed up some fractures and some scars that I had up in there, probably for the last 6 or 7 years before that. And my arm has felt better the last 6 years or 5 years than it did the 6 years prior to that. But more so, I went to Austin and I met this guy named Scott Lacey. He works at a D3 there now. He's gotten pro ball offers and stuff, but he's kind of settled in Austin. He's starting to think about going, but um, that was kind of when Driveline was pretty prominent and they're doing the hip shoulder stuff and Tread had just started. And so I went to him and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to live in Austin. Can you help me with all this stuff?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty wired into like how to biomechanically make your body move more efficiently." And we really dove in and did that. And 2021 was my first year of like implementing that with Jacksonville. I was more worried about velo and how to like create velo without overthrowing, and like cared less about command and more about stuff, like the way the game has kind of changed. And my career is catapulted that from there. But really it was during COVID in 2021, you really had to love baseball to make it through those 2 years. Like it was not what you remember. Like it was like the 5 years before that, it's clubhouse, showing up early, interacting with fans, playing. You could talk to the other team, like all the things that you love about baseball. And then 2020 and 2021, it was like you had like the guy you played catch with, and you weren't allowed to interact with anybody else. And then 2021, you were on the bus, but you couldn't sit near anybody. And like you traveled maybe 6 hours at most. And like there was no more plane rides, there was no more like team camaraderie stuff. And it's like I realized very quickly that I didn't love that version of baseball as much. And I was like, well, what if it gets back to normal? I'm going to appreciate it a lot more. And so 2022, I just appreciated the fact that I could be around my teammates, be around the fans, like have family come visit, do all those things without worried about getting COVID. And that kind of rejuvenated my love for the game a little bit.
The interesting thing I think, in addition to rejuvenating the love of the game, is I read this really interesting story about you. You talked a little bit about this, like the stuff factor. Um, I guess there's like you had to relearn a breaking ball, like you had a traditional curveball, and you go to a gyro slider, if I'm remembering this correctly. So, like to people who don't know what is a gyro slider, what is that? And how did that help going from a traditional curveball to this pitch that kind of features pretty prominently into what you do to this day right now with the in the major leagues with the Brewers?
Yeah, so in 2022, I was with the Mets, and the Yankees had just invented the sweeper. They were calling it the whirly at the time. And so I learned that pretty quickly. I'm a supinator, so I was able to turn my hand and like pick it up relatively quickly. And so that helped me get left-handed bats out. But then I was having a problem getting righties out. And the next year with the Pirates, I made up this like cutter thing to try to get inside to righties. And I was throwing it in front of the pitching coach, and he was like, "Yeah, this kind of profile's close to your heater. It's not doesn't grade out super well." And he was like, "What if you tried to get some depth with it, like get over the top of it?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it out." And the first one I threw, like knocked off like 6 inches of vert and kept the same velo. And we just kind of worked from there. It took about a year, and the Brewers helped me perfect it in 2024. And but yeah, it was just one of those where like getting on top of the ball creates a little bit more bullet spin. So like if I had a baseball, I'd show you, but the ball spins more bullety and just fights gravity a little more. Like instead of like I carry the baseball, this essentially fights gravity a lot more. And me being able to keep the 87, 88 mile an hour velo makes it look like a heater, and then it moves a little bit late. But it grades out well, and it's because it moves in the last like 15 feet. It kind of tracks like a fastball all the way into the last 10, 15 feet, and then it dives down. So that's kind of been my bread and butter. I throw it like 35% of the time now.
That is so interesting because I've talked to so many pitchers, and I always love talking to pitching coaches, picking their brain, doing all this stuff. But you're very data driven. You're very intrigued with like it sounds like trying new pitches, trying new things. Like how can I get the most out of my pitches? How can I get the most out of the movement? The Brewers you mentioned, in my mind, have been at the top of development, the top of like how to go about exactly what you're talking about. How similar and different maybe was your time at Driveline versus in the Brewers organization? Because I've heard that they're similar, but I'd love to hear how maybe they're different and how they helped you in that sense.
So Driveline, I was there, I think 22, and they do a really good job of teaching you how to move correctly. They're I mean, the longer you're there, I'm sure they'd help you a lot more. I was kind of doing remote, so I didn't really throw all my pens with them. And they were more so like, how do we create velo? Because then everything else will play off of that. And so they did a good job helping me rotate a little bit better and get stronger in some of my deficiencies. The Brewers do a really good job of kind of finding guys that have something they do well that they could do a lot better. Like we just traded for Zerpa from Kansas City, and he's got incredible stuff, and he's had a lot of success in the big leagues. And I'm not sure what their plan is, but a couple rumors have been thrown out there. They're going to lengthen him out. He's like a 99th percentile ground ball guy. They're going to find a way to get him in situations where he can go multiple innings. But they just target these guys that aren't utilized, I think, the way the Brewers would, and then they do it a little bit differently. Like the guy we actually traded for him, Nick Mears, they got him from Colorado, and he was really good in Colorado, but he's a vert guy with depth. And in Colorado, that just doesn't work, right? Like you want cutters there. Your sweeper doesn't move quite as much there. I mean, you're going to be right in the thick of it. It's like sinkers and cutters are the ones that kind of play as well there as they should, whereas the sweepers and like the top spin curveballs, they don't bite. There's no air for it to fight against. And so they go grab Nick Mears and they bring him to Milwaukee, and they're like, hey, vert and depth play here. You're going to go straight four seams at the top. You're going to go your gyro slider off that. And then they just allowed him to be him. They asked him what he wanted to do. They asked him how he wants to sequence hitters. And then they put that up against how they think he should. And then by the end of like 2 3 weeks doing it, you have this plan, and then you never deviate from that plan.
Hmm.
Wow. That was a better answer than I could have. That's great.
Yeah, good.
So what you're saying is also shout out to the Brewers scouting department because clearly they are doing something that need a raise
Yeah.
because I mean, you never think about it, but the scouting portion of it, just like you said, like going and picking out guys that maybe have exactly what would play in like Mears, exactly what would play in the Brewers, but don't play. And I talked about this on a different podcast. Have you played in Colorado?
Yeah. Like
Okay, so
7 or 8 series there.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not really familiar with it, but I've heard a lot of people talk exactly what you're talking about, where like they just signed Lorenzen,
Yeah.
and he's a sinker slider guy. Like everything's moving down, everything's moving east west, where those ride guys just don't play. Where like I was in Miami or like you're over in New York, Like you got what's the pitcher's name? Schittler?
Yeah, Cam Schlittler.
Yeah, Schlittler. Mike, dude, I mean, he's like 22 inches a ride. You got Jonah Tong with 24. Like
Yeah.
that just plays on the East Coast, where on the West Coast, up in the mountains, it just doesn't. It's interesting to hear you talk about how the Brewers kind of developed that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do a good job, like game to game, season to season. They take a look. Like if I'm facing you, let's say hypothetically a sweeper down and away is the right pitch, but
Whoa. I don't like
they'll
that.
go, no, they'll go. Hey, over his last 10 games, he's made an adjustment. He's staying in the zone longer and he's flicking that ball over third base or he's pulling it over second. He's done damage on two or three over the last 10 games. Let's back him off the plate first before we throw that. Or something along those lines. Like the one for
Oh,
me is we're
interesting.
facing we're facing Schwarber. He's on Homer 49. And they're like, hey, like this might not factor in, but just know that if he gets here in 2 days without hitting that 50th homer, he's gonna have that 50th homer monkey on his back.
Hmm.
They're like, so he's gonna be trying to do a little bit more damage. Like he's still gonna be Kyle Schwarber. This is how we're gonna attack him. They're like, but just know that he's probably going to at least another 20% of his mind is going to be focused on getting damage pull side so he can hit that 50th homer. And like it's just small things like that that like maybe they factor in on just one pitch or they factor in one situation in a 3 game series, but it's like then we take that game and at the end of the year you look and we have 96 wins or whatever we ended up having. And it's like they're trying to win every single day. They're not super worried about what's going to happen in the future. That they're not worried about like, okay, if we throw these guys today, we have these guys for tomorrow, anything like that. It's how do we win tonight? And that's Pat Murphy's thing. It's very college where it's like every game is important. How do we win today? If we're down three in the sixth, it's like we're still pinch hitting Jake Bowers against the righty. We're still bringing in Reese Hoskins against the lefty. We're still doing every small thing just in case you get that bloop and a blast and all of a sudden you're back into it.
So that's interesting. That's an interesting take. Did you, were you a college guy or high school guy? I'm so sorry.
Missouri.
Oh, yeah,
Missouri. Okay. So college
college.
guy. So I thought one of the most interesting hires of the offseason was the Tennessee head coach
Hmm.
to the Giants.
Yeah.
Talk me through kind of Pat Murphy's thought process with, you said it was college. How do you think that plays in pro ball? And how do you think maybe will the Tennessee coach in San Francisco, will he have success doing maybe a college style program or what did you like and what did you don't not like about that, I guess?
So one of the benefits of being around as long as I have and bouncing around and everything, like it's not the ideal path. I guess you want to be somewhere for 10 years, so you can buy a house, do all that stuff. But one of the things that has helped me a ton is like I've been around so many different people. I've trained at these different places. I've played everywhere. And so I kind of have an idea of like what a team is about. And so I trained with like Logan Webb and I played with Dom Smith and a couple of guys that were there last year. And so when I talk to these guys, it's the Giants play hard. They have a bunch of scrappy dudes. They've kind of curtailed their lineup. Like even their superstars play hard every day. Like Matt Chapman and Willie Adames want to play every single day. They want to show up. They want to play defense. They'll take a bag if they need to. They'll bunt a guy over if they need to. So them hiring Vitello, who recruited me to Missouri, actually is a
Oh,
awesome hire. Yeah, I'm telling you, I know everybody, unfortunately, but um, it's a good hire for them. And it's like, I don't want to throw a team out there, but hypothetically, the Mets try to hire a guy like Vitello. They have superstars that have been doing things for the same way for 15 years. And like guys who are going to hit 40-40. Lindor is going to be an all-star and he's going to get MVP votes and things. And it's like, you don't want to bring a guy like that to a team like that because you don't want to disrupt what these stars are doing. But like a team like the Giants that have stars, but they have the guys who are willing to grind every single day. They're willing to grind out every single at bat. Like I played with Willie 2 years ago, and trying to take him out of the lineup was the hardest thing I've ever seen in the world. Like Murphy would walk up to him and be like, "Willie, you're getting the day off," and he would just tell him no. He's like, "No, I'm
that's
not.
crazy.
I'm gonna spike up and I'm gonna sit at the end of the bench and I'm gonna pinch hit in the seventh inning." Like you could not give Willie a day off. And like those are the type of guys that do well under Pat Murphy, that will do well under Tony Vitello. And it's cool to see. And I love being on this Brewers team because these guys don't have ego at all. Like Christian Yelich is one of the best players in baseball, and he'll do exactly what you ask him to do. Hey, we need you to play left field today. Okay, coach, no problem. Hey, you're gonna bat seventh today for whatever reason. Okay, no problem. And it's hard to find guys with no ego like that.
You talked about the culture and the Brewers. I know every single Milwaukee Brewer probably knows this. You've all the great players you've lost, like Adames and Corbin Burns and Hader, and Hader was before you, I think. But regardless, like is that just the culture where it's like no matter what, who we lose, all these really good players, like we're gonna go into spring training in what, a couple weeks or so,
Yeah.
and we're gonna be okay because whatever we need, we're so good at identifying what we need and the player we need to fill that role, and we're just going to have all of our guys just do anything possible to win the Central again. Like, is that the feeling in the clubhouse, like throughout the year and in spring training?
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, and it's Murphy, it's the analytical department bringing these guys in. Like, pick any guy on the roster, and like some of them are first rounders, some of them are free agent signs, some of them are trades, and it's like they've cultivated this environment where it's not really next man up. It is because it's always next man up, but it's like if we lose 30 homers and a 290 average like we lost in Adamas, it's not like we need Joey Ortiz to go and hit 30 homers and hit 290. He's like, Terang's going to pick it up. He's going to start hitting for more power. And he's like, then we're going to go get Durbin from the Yankees. Durbin's going to play great third base. And they just emphasize these, everybody gets a little bit better at something, right? Like, we signed Durbin. He's not a third baseman. They just stick him at third and they work him every day for an hour. And credit to Durbin for going out there early and taking ground balls and learning from every mistake he made, talking to Joey Ortiz and Terang, who are gold glovers, and being like, what can I do to get better? And they're always just trying to find the edge. So instead of trying to like the Moneyball approach where you have to replace Giambi's 1,000 OPS, with one guy. It's like we're going to do it with three guys that are all going to up their OPS by 40 points because we're going to do scouting reports better, or we're going to put them in better situations to succeed. And if they all up their OPS by 40 points, we got a Giambi right there. And they just do it like with everybody. They want everybody to up their game. They want everybody to be in a situation to succeed. And then you look at the end of the year, and a lot of guys had really, really good years.
What's it like now, like at this stage of your career being with them versus you also came up with a great team and also a lot of big personalities on that team. So like you're in your early 20s, you come up with the Chicago Cubs, you win a World Series, and now you're 33, 34 years old. You're with a team that wins 96 games every single year, seemingly. But does it feel different at all, like in terms of where you are personally in your career?
It does, yeah. I actually, so I missed the first time we were supposed to podcast. Completely my fault. Sorry about that. I was
It's also
actually
my fault.
okay.
You
Good,
guys
good.
actually
Yeah.
both missed it,
I
which is
also, yeah.
hilarious.
Both of our faults, yeah. Um, I was actually going to the 10-year anniversary of the World Series, so that's what I was doing last weekend, and it's kind of cool timing because we talked about Pat Murphy. He runs his team like a college team. He doesn't make us do polls. He doesn't punish us for like all the college stuff. It's just the way that we play the game. Similarly, I got to talk to Joe Madden like 3 days ago, and I got to talk to him for about 20 minutes, which was nice because when I was a young guy, I was just trying to avoid the front office. Like I was trying to hide long enough to where they didn't option me or anything like that. So now I got to talk to him more candidly, and I was like, Joe, I really appreciated what you did with that team. I thought you did a really good job because that team had superstars everywhere. Like if you weren't a superstar on that team, you were about to be. It was like Javi, Chris, Addison Russell, all those young guys that were about to be stars paired up with Anthony Rizzo, John Lester, Jake Arrieta, all the guys that were stars. And he did a really good job of blending that group, right? Like that group could easily be the superstars hang out and the young guys hang out. And then all of a sudden it's like, what group are you in? And you're no longer a team. But the old guys did a good job of incorporating the young guys. But Joe did great. Like Joe made you feel like you were at home. I remember the first time he optioned me, it was 2017. He sat me down. He was like, "We love having you. You got to go to AAA. We need an arm, whatever it was. Do you want a glass of wine?"
Wow.
And I was like, do I want a glass of wine? Are you serious?" And he was just sipping on a glass. Like, it was very casual. It was very like, we're going to see you again. And he did that with everyone. There was no panic there. And that's how it feels with Murph, too. If we lose 2 or 3 games, it's not like we're out doing PFPs and we have early BP and we're all going to go out and shag and anything like that. He's like, hey, we keep playing Brewer baseball. We're going to win more often than we lose. And both of those managers did a really good job of like sometimes, man, I don't know, like I've been on teams like the Pirates. We lost a lot in the second half, and it was like you didn't want to come to the field. You were like, "Oh, are we going to lose again?" Like, no way, we're about to lose 5 in a row, whatever it was. And it's hard to right that ship. But when you have a manager in charge that kind of puts you in a situation where you believe in yourselves more than you like fear the failure of losing, then you'll never really hit those skids. And when you do, it's like, okay, we'll make up for it. Like we had an 8 game winning streak, a 7 game winning streak, and then like a 13 game winning streak. And it was just when we were winning, he kept the momentum. And when we were losing, he ended that negative momentum quickly.
So you brought up two managers just then. When we got to see you a couple years ago, it was when you were back in AAA with Rick Sweet, who I think is third on the all-time wins list in the minor leagues. And when you were coming up in the minor leagues, I apologize to keep asking about different phases of your career,
Yeah.
but you were coming up and you played for the guy who is in fourth in the minor league wins list in Buddy Bailey, I think in
Yep.
Tennessee in 2015. So I think those are getting to know Sweetie a little bit, when he comes here. Buddy was my manager in Myrtle Beach. We asked Ryan Kellogg about him on a previous episode and what it was like to play for him. Two very different personalities, obviously two of the top four most successful minor league managers in the history of baseball. What's it been like for you to deal with those two guys? Like Joe, amazing major league manager. Murphy's done a great job with the Brewers. But these are like some of the unsung heroes of why the Cubs were so good in the 2010s, like Buddy, what he did to develop guys. And then obviously like Sweetie, amazing job because anyone they call up from AAA, yourself included, makes an amazing impact in the major leagues.
This is kind of a good time. So I was excited to jump on this podcast for two reasons: to talk to you, I haven't talked to you in a while, and to like pick Troy's brain a little bit as well because he's kind of done the same thing I have, where
Mhm.
he's had different regime changes while he's in the same org. He's now in a new organization. He's going to meet an entirely new group of people, and my advice to him and my advice to myself when I was doing that was you take as much as you can from everybody. And you bringing up Buddy Bailey and Rick Sweet, they couldn't be more different people, but you can still learn from everybody you talk to. And Rick Sweet is kind of the perfect manager for me, and it's all about timing. Like this part of my career, he sits in the clubhouse, like his office looks into like a third of the clubhouse. So you can see like four lockers from his office chair, and then the rest is around the corner. And my locker was one of the ones you could see from his office. And so the first day I get there, I'm like, hey, where's my locker? And the clubbie's like, it's right here. And so I unpack all my stuff and I sit down. And as soon as I sit down, I realize that if I look to my left, I'm making eye contact with my manager. And I was like, oh no, like I like to mess around a lot in the clubhouse. I like to do some dumb stuff. I was like, now my manager's gonna have a front row seat to it. And so first day he calls me into the office and he's like, Rob, bet you're wondering why you have that locker right there. And I was like, kind of like, I'm really like, I don't care, but like, yeah, I'm kind of wondering. And he was like, I like to keep a pulse on the clubhouse. And he's like, I feel like the guys who carry the pulse of this clubhouse are the four guys that I can see. And it was like me, Christian Arroyo, a guy named Kevin Herget, who's been around forever. And then one of the catchers, Navarretto, who's actually
With us,
with me
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, it made so much sense because it's like two right next to each other and two across the locker room that he can see. And he's always just peeking his head out. And like, he would 3 times a week, he'd look out, make eye contact with me, give a thumbs up. And if I gave him a thumbs up back, he would just go back to his office. And it was like, he just wanted to make sure he had the pulse check. Is everything good? Are we doing things? And like, he would be like, hey, pitchers, we have PFPs in 40 minutes. And he'd go sit in his office and then he'd look at me and be like, I'd be like, yeah, we're good. Like he just wanted to make sure that everything he was doing was what the team wanted and what was best for the team. And he was awesome that way. Buddy was very, very different, but Buddy was perfect because I thought he could have been a big league manager. But then the longer I played with him, I realized how perfectly fit he was for double A or high A. Because I know he was in double A when I had him, and then he went to Myrtle Beach, which was high A. And what he did was he stripped every thought of prospect status away from your brain that you had. Because that's kind of the time where you're like, my big league comp is this guy. My ETA for the MLB is 2026. And all these things that don't matter. And Buddy Bailey just ripped those away from you. I remember I got there, I was a second round pick, and I was like fast tracked for the big leagues. And he at every turn let me know that I wasn't worth anything to the Chicago Cubs by the player that I was currently. He's like, if you think you're ready for the big league, son, you're not. Like that's how he would talk to you all the time. And like it pissed me off early. I was like, dude, like, why is this guy always on me? And then by the end of the year, I realized it was like he was just making sure that I was mentally prepared for everything you could be mentally prepared for in the big leagues. Like I would have a rough start after two good ones, and I'd essentially in my mind be like, okay, it's double A, it's not a huge deal, learn from it. And he would come up and be like, we just lost the game because you can't go 5 innings. I'd be like, Jesus, buddy, like, but that's how it is in the big leagues. It's like you got to do your
Yeah.
job, and you have to do it as many possible times as you can. And he did a really good job of introducing you to that stress and that pressure. And once I got to the big leagues, I was like, this is just like playing for Buddy Bailey, and it was no different than that.
Amazing impression, by the way.
You
Yeah,
great.
Like grade A. That's grade A.
I've been working on it for a while.
You come up like August of 2016, like the Cubs are in this pennant race, right? And I think if I'm remembering correctly, and it was 5 years that we did this interview, and I told you my wife is a huge Cubs fan, and I think you had said like if it was Arietta or somebody else who had really took you under your wing, but you get there at a pretty pivotal point of the season in a pretty high pressure place. Like Chicago Cubs is high pressure, in particular when they're that close to potentially winning their first World Series in more than 100 years. What do you remember about coming up and just being with that team throughout the rest of that campaign?
Looking back, I just think everything that there is to thank that social media wasn't as prevalent as my life in my life as it is now, because there was so much outside pressure that you never saw. Like once you got in the clubhouse, all the guys were just hanging out. We were watching TV, watching whatever game was on. I think at that time football had just started, and we'd be watching the Florida game and just really focusing on what was going on in the clubhouse and like kicking back and laying loose. But yeah, those guys did a really good job. They knew how important it was, and they knew how important every piece of the puzzle was. Because it's really easy to be on a team like that and be like, okay, like Arietta, Lester, Lackey, Hendricks, Hamill, they're going to carry us. We're fine. And in our bullpen, we had Chapman, Rondon, Strope, and Justin Grimm and CJ Edwards. So it's really easy to be like, hey, those guys will carry the weight. I'm just here to make sure I do my job. And they, at every single point, made it known that I was important to the team. Like I would throw 2, 3 innings of relief in Colorado. We'd be down 6-0, and we'd lose the game 8-1. And I'd come in from that game and be like, well, I did my job. And they would come and be like, hey, you set us up for tomorrow. We're going to win a baseball game, and it's going to be entirely because you came in and threw 3 innings for us. And like it just changes your mindset to where like no role is not important. And then you see like the World Series game 7, everybody on that team played and everybody did some small thing. I think Mike Montgomery was like the last guy out of the bullpen. He threw the last out of the World Series. And that was just kind of a testament to them making sure everybody knew their role was important. And every small thing was brought up. Like Albert Almora in game 7, he tagged up from first to second on a deep fly ball to right center and then scored on a single. And then we didn't hit another one after that. And it's like, Albert doesn't tag up to second on a deep ball to right center. We don't score that run. We win that game by 1 run. Maybe we're not sitting here as World Series champions. And they, at every moment in every game, we were 25 games up when I got there. Like we clinched the division like September 3rd. It was insane. Like that team was so good. And it didn't matter. They're like, we were playing every game to get better and to win. And they made sure you knew that like what you were doing, no matter how many runs were scored, no matter what the score was important and to get ready for your next outing.
So
Did you
you said
understand?
something. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
The thing I always think about with that team is like going around Wrigley Field, like the people who had their father or their mother or their grandparents had passed away, and they like wrote their names of those loved ones on the chalk
Yeah.
of Wrigley Field, or they were watching the World or listening to the World Series games at their cemetery, like with their deceased
Yeah.
ancestor. Like, did you understand the gravity of what that potentially meant? I remember you telling me in 2021, like people recognized you and you couldn't believe it because you were like the last man on the roster.
Yeah.
Like, did that hit you of what a win would mean? And then when it obviously happened, like I'm sure you realized then, but like what was that like dealing with that? Like, there's a great fan base.
Yeah.
And you can't say too much. Brewers fans are also great. It's a great rivalry, but like that is just something, the scenes of that are incredible.
Yeah, that was one of those where like I said, like I'm glad social media, like I wasn't on scrolling TikTok or Twitter every day. I just kind of was going about my business, which is good. Um I didn't realize it until after how big it was. Like I knew there was the 108 years. I knew there was a bunch of people and stuff, but like I didn't really understand the gravity of it. Like there was one that I'll never forget. It was before game six or game five of the World Series. We are down 2-1 or 3-1 or it was 3-2. It was one of those games. And I saw a tweet of a guy who's like, my dad has stage 4 colon cancer and he's got 2 months to live. And this is his last chance to see a World Series from Chicago. He's never seen it. And things of that nature, like that's when it became like really heavy to me. And I wasn't on the World Series roster, so I didn't share that with any of my teammates. I was like, I don't need to add any pressure to these guys. But I remember sitting there and I was like, this means so much more. And I was a rookie and I had so many years in front of me and I was going to play in the big leagues for 15 more years and like all of that. But that moment felt so insanely heavy. But I don't know how the guys did it. They just made it so light. Like Rizzo, the story of him running around, he put Rocky on every TV in the clubhouse and he was running around to the Rocky theme. He changed his walkout to the Rocky theme. Like they just did a really good job of keeping everything light because it was a very heavy situation and there was a lot of pressure. And Cleveland, I think, felt the same pressure too. They're 54 years or whatever at the time, 46 years, I can't remember. But yeah, it was one of those where like looking back and like there's been moments since like last year I was on the Cubs going into spring training. They had claimed me off waivers from the Brewers. And I went to CubsCon that year. And I remember I had my autograph signing. And so CubsCon's a huge thing. Like I think more teams should make it as big as Chicago does. It's like there's thousands and thousands of people. It's insanity. I show up to my autograph signing and there's like 45 people in line. And I was like, oh, not as big as it was when I was a young guy here and we won a World Series, but still okay, great. Like I'm glad that my name carries a little bit of weight here or whatever. And I got there like 5 minutes early and I'm signing for these 46 people. They finish up and they leave. And I look at our guy and I'm like, am I done? He's like, no, you haven't started yours. You just picked up on a Maya who left early. And I was like, okay. And they're like, we're going to open the gates for you now. And like hundreds of people flooded in. And every single one of them shared some moment with me about how much it meant to them. Like, hey, I watched it with my grandma. She died the next year. Or I watched it with my dad. He cried. It's the first time I've ever seen him cry. Things like that. And it's become more heavy and like more like I realized how much more it meant later. And I'm really glad I didn't understand it quite as much in the moment because it was very significant for that city.
Wow, that is just, I mean, that hits right in the heart. That is so cool to
Yeah.
be
I
part of
still
that.
get goosebumps thinking about
Yeah.
it.
Was I remembering correctly? Like, was it Arrieta who was the one? I remember you telling me there was some pitcher who really kind of took you under their wing and you learned a lot. Like, was it Arrieta or am I misremembering who that was?
I mean, there's stories for all of them. I'm pretty sure the one I told you was Arietta. There's like, I could tell you every moment that these guys had, but Jake was the one where it was less like sit down and teach you things. And it was more like if you just took a seat and watched him do his job, you realize what it takes to be a big leaguer and one of that caliber where you win Cy Youngs. And he was the one for me where like he told me, and I still take it to this day. He was like, you never show weakness ever. He's like, when you're walking to the store, you're walking whatever, you head held high, shoulders back, good posture, and you walk. And it's like you never let anyone know they're getting to you. And that's how Jake was. Like Jake would walk a guy and he would like nod his head and he would get back up on the mound. You never felt like you were gaining momentum against Jake. And I learned that from him. Kyle Hendricks taught me all about scouting reports and taught me all about like pitching and setting up pitches. Lester taught me how to just compete. The guy, all he did his whole career was compete. Like you could argue that he's a Hall of Famer. I 1000% think he is. And probably didn't have elite stuff, but he never let you beat him. He'd have second and third no outs and he'd go punch out, fly out. Like he just never let you beat him. And so all those guys taught me something like differently about pitching. And like I've taken hundreds of things from hundreds of different people, but that was just going back to the reunion. We were all joking around. It felt like we jumped in a time machine because when we all got back together, it felt like we were back in the clubhouse hanging out. And it's cool because like I've heard about 10-year reunions for high school. And it's like, oh my God, so and so's married now and he has kids. And wow, that's crazy. And it's like we got back to the clubhouse and it felt like we were back in the playoffs hanging out. Like it was just it was very cool and like you don't get that a lot with a lot of different clubhouses.
It was very cool.
I got one more, Troy. I don't know.
Take it.
All right.
I'm
Uh,
just I'm loving listening right
this is
now. I wish I
amazing.
had more questions, but I'm loving all the stories.
This
It's
is, I
fantastic.
mean, this is why it's funny because our other broadcaster in 2021, who you didn't get to meet, Troy, Rob, you're also one of his favorite all-time players. But anyway, and
Good,
a
good.
funny story is he texted Rob. Do you remember this? Matt Present texted
Yeah,
you like 2 years later asking for fantasy football trade advice or something
yeah.
like that. And
He's
I,
like,
and I
"Hey,
was
are
like,
you
I think he'll
are you still
reply.
doing it?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Um, you talk about you joked, all these people because you haven't been in a place for a long time, and you were excited to come on here to talk to Troy because it's a similar situation of sticking on the bubble and trying to fight your way onto a roster like that in a huge way is a theme of your career. And I think with those kind of people, like you understand the grittiness and you talked about like the adjustments you've had to make and things of that nature. And Sweetie identifying you as a pulse in the clubhouse, like you thought in 2016, I got 15 years ahead of me. You're getting a little bit closer to that. So like whenever that is done, do you feel like you'll get into the coaching realm? Do you have an idea of what you might do? Because like baseball clearly is something you're good at. It's something you're passionate about. It is something that people look at you and they're like, this guy, he gets like that side of it of like what it's like to try to survive in this game. Like, do you want to stay in it? Or like, what are your thoughts there, if any?
Uh, I think I do, and I wanted to play baseball from a very young age. I think all of us did, and me more than most understand like the highs and lows, the business side of it, um, kind of what it takes to get there, what it takes to stay there, like what it takes to bounce back from failure. It's all these little things, and like you mentioned it with Troy, and it's like I look at Troy's numbers, like right before we got on this call. Like I don't care about anybody's numbers. I care more about how you are in the clubhouse, like how you show up every day. But I just wanted to know where you went to college. I wanted to know how long you were with the Marlins. I wanted to see if you went through some regime changes, the GM changes, the coaching changes, all those things, because it's like those are the things that nobody puts on the back of a baseball card. Nobody tells you like you hit 290 in AAA for 2 years without getting a call up, what that feels like. Because that's one of the most hopeless feelings in the world. And as a pitcher, it's like I had a good year in Jacksonville and I didn't get a call up. The next year I went to Syracuse and had a good year and didn't get a call up. And those were the 2 years that kind of changed my perspective from like I'm good enough to be in the big leagues. I'm just not getting an opportunity to what do I have to do to essentially make it to where you can't leave me in AAA. You can't not call me up. And it was adding the cutter. It was playing my vert a little bit better. It was adding the gyro cutter like we talked about. And then for me, it was adding a sweeper so I could jump into that lefty specialist role. And once I shifted my mindset from like, man, I'm getting screwed over, which everyone feels like, and a lot of people do get screwed over in this game. Like a lot of people, it's like he's good, but this prospect has a higher ceiling, or he's good, but we traded for this guy 2 years ago, and we don't want to make it look like we lost that trade, or whatever the ego that goes into it. That shifted for me. And then going back to the Brewers is what kind of rejuvenated my love for baseball in like the old form of it, like the college level, we're going to bunt guys over, we're going to create havoc on the base pass, and we're going to play good defense. If nothing else, we're going to make sure you guys don't get free hits. And we're going to put guys in the right situation. And like that has made me realize that like I could coach in college or I could coach in pro ball if I land in the right spot. And, um, yeah, it's like the part of the reason I wanted to jump on it, like I said, was talk to you. But like Troy, it's the guy, all he's ever done is hit. And like I could sit here and tell you how good you are, and I know it's hard to take compliments and everything like that, but like I appreciate the side of it where you're like doing everything you can with an organization that you started in, and then now you're in a new org, and now you feel like you got to reset and you got to reteach everybody who you are as a player. And like those are the little stresses and the ups and downs that I appreciate when guys bounce back from, because it is hard. It's hard to meet new people. It's hard to go into spring not knowing anybody, especially when you've known everybody for years. It's hard to go from an org that values you as a player and then they change everybody and they no longer value you, or they do value you more. It's just those are the up and downs that I appreciate. And so coaching and helping guys get through that is like you can teach a guy swing mechanics, strike to ball, swing decision. You can teach guys everything, but you can't teach guys how to go through that mental and physical toll where you're laying up at night. You're like, man, should I sign with this team, or should I play one more year, or should I just call it? Like getting over those humps are the ones I feel like I can help guys out with the most.
I mean, I can't thank you enough for the kind compliments. I would consider myself a better looking baseball player. I think I'm a uni guy than I am an actual player, but
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think, and again, I know we talked about it pre-show, but this podcast is all about showing humanity and showing exactly what the baseball life shows, where a lot of people don't understand that part of it. You talk about me going through regime changes, you going to different teams, like, and not a lot of people understand this, but if you're not brought in by the front office, you lose value immediately.
Immediately.
You are seen as a second class player. Now they're going to bring in whoever they're going to bring in, because now it's their guys, it's their mold, it's their stamp. It's not whoever was there before them. That's their guy. No matter how good they are, they could be the best player on every team, but because they were from a different regime, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And it's so refreshing to hear something like that, because truly our stories are more common than the story of the guy that gets called up at 22, the freaks, the Bobby Witts, the
Yep.
Vinny Pasquantinos, the Ronald Acuñas, the Sotos. Those are the 1% guys. Those everybody loves those guys. How can you
Yep.
not? They're they're there for a reason. They're a freak for a reason. But realistically in baseball, there's so much turnover. Although the brotherhood is small, there's so much turnover. There's so many opportunities and lack of opportunity, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But it is so, so refreshing to talk to somebody that's been in the same situation, that has bounced around, that even could give me a little bit of advice going into a new team, because as you know, this is my first brand new team.
Yeah.
And so I know a couple guys here and there. But again, it's feeling your way through, making sure, because as Scott knows, I'm a very big personality. I may have not shown it today, but I'm a very big personality.
Yeah.
It's a great
So
personality.
I'm, I'm a lot to take if you don't understand me yet. But yes, that is something that I think you should run with, because I know that that's something you talked about, was talking about the ins and outs of baseball and that. But it's so nice that you even brought that up. And of course, thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's cool to see, and like I played against you, and like the joke I
Of
made when he
course.
texted me was like, I would love to talk to him about how he hits lefties because I couldn't get him out, and like I love that like I played against you, never met you before, and it's like I feel like I know you because like I know what you've gone through, and like talking to you is super easy. Like you said, you're a big personality, which I feel like I am as well. And when you bounce to a new team, it's like you hide it for 3 4 weeks, and then by the end of spring training, you're like, why did I hide it? Like these guys are cool. Like I said, like
Yeah.
I've met 1,500 baseball players, and I could probably put on one hand the guys that I didn't mesh with. Like everybody's just baseball guys are great. Like they should be more shown about the personality of baseball guys because they're fantastic. But yeah, like not that you need my advice, but it's just be yourself. And it's like it's so hard to do that. It's so easy to be like, yeah, I'm gonna be myself, and then you show up and like you're in a clubhouse with a guy that you respect, and you don't get off on the right foot. You have an awkward first interaction. You're like, well, that guy hates me now, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. And it's just it's so fun to do it, and it's great to make connections and everything. But it's like when I started bouncing around, I felt the way you felt about the regime change because it's so true. It's like these guys didn't draft me. Like I'm just a shot at a dartboard. Like I'm they're just throwing darts and seeing if I stick. And then you quickly realize that the teams that acquire you, they do it for a reason. There's no more random like acquires. There's no like, okay, I've heard that guy before. Let's claim him or let's trade for him just because we feel like it. Like every team that acquires you from here on out, hopefully no one else says you play for the Rockies forever. But every team that you play for grabs you for a reason, and there's a little bit of confidence in that because they're not grabbing you to change you, they're grabbing you to make you better or let you do what you want more often. And like that is a very freeing feeling. Like once you get to Colorado spring training, Salt River, you're going to realize that they have a plan for you and they're excited for you, and that's a really really good feeling.
That is really cool. Well, and I do want to give you a little bit of insight too on why we are big personalities. We're
What's
lefties.
that? That's you know what? That's right. That is
But
100%
that-
right.
we're lefties. That's
Yeah.
all it is. I
Yeah.
mean, the righties are boring. Whatever. Sorry, Scott, you're boring. But
All right. I'm just one of many.
Yeah.
the
One of many.
lefties, the lefties, that's why we're big personalities. But Rob, thank you so much for your time. You have been more than great. This has been so much fun. Like you said, I wish I had more to ask, more to say, but you had such great stories. I just
Yeah.
let you go. It was
Thank you.
fantastic. Um, I would love to have you on another time, especially with the way you talk, your big personality. You have been absolutely fantastic today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Anytime I can come on somewhere, especially if I know the guys, it's like I just felt like I was chatting with you guys like I was on a phone call. It's super
That's
nice.
all
Like
it is. Yep.
I don't feel like I have to like check any boxes or like okay, make sure you're interesting enough and like no, just I just felt like I was chatting with the
Just
boys
being
and
yourself. Yep. Just
those are
being
my
yourself.
favorite. Yeah, you guys do a good job of that.
Thank you, Rob. You really appreciate the time. You were phenomenal.
Yeah. Thanks guys. I'm gonna go work out.
All right, everybody. That's been turn two with Scott and Troy. Rob, thank you again so much. You can catch us wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, everybody.